All right, I am back. I missed the rant yesterday because I've not been feeling well over this past weekend, but today I'm feeling a lot better. So I'm going to get you the weekly soccer rant, and today I'm going to be discussing everything related to futsal. So if you have a question about it while I'm doing this rant, let me know. And of course, I'm going to be doing my live video come tomorrow, but I'm going to be bringing you a lot of good content and why it's so important for a footballer's development. Okay, so let's get started. I'll see you in a minute. So first I want to segment it off like this. If you have aspirations of becoming a professional soccer player at the highest level, right? You want to play in the Premier League, you want to play in La Liga, you want to play in Ligue 1, Serie A, Bundesliga, whatever. You need to play futsal, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a study that was put out, I think, in 2015, and the study basically said this. In futsal, a player is put under pressure within 1 second of receiving the ball. And in the Premier League, this had the fastest speed. It was 2.3 seconds. So think about that just speed element that you need to have of your brain, your mental ability, the capability to think fast, is 1 second in futsal versus 2.3 seconds in the Premier League, right? So that's a huge scale difference. You're immediately put under pressure. You have to have a solution before you even have the ball when you play futsal. You have to know your next step. So what that means is you're constantly having to make rapid, instantaneous decisions before you receive the ball, and of course maybe a change in your decision after receiving the ball. So it's how quickly, or to be successful in futsal rather, how quickly you make that decision. If you don't think fast enough, you're in trouble every single time. To you this way, if you have a favorite player, Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, Ronaldinho, Marcelo, Eden Hazard, De Bruyne, Aguero, Suarez, all these guys that I'm naming, you know what they all have in common? Obviously, they all played professional football, but they all played futsal in their youth. And in fact, I'm going to highlight two guys. Messi and Ronaldo said that in their youth, they essentially relied on futsal for their development, especially as kids. Now, if you go to Brazil, and I went there as a kid, and I was there for almost a month. We played, and this was at 13 years old, we played non-stop futsal. I was there for almost a month, and we played soccer twice. Every other time was futsal, futsal, futsal. So like it was constantly having to make rapid decisions. Now, if you want to play at the highest level, and I've said this before, if you want to play at the highest level, you need technique, you need soccer IQ, and you need the ability to make strong decisions, positive decisions. Okay, and futsal creates all of those templates for you. Now, interestingly enough, about age 14 is when most Brazilians will switch over from futsal to soccer if they want to play soccer longer term, right? If they want to become a professional. But a lot of them will go and continue to play futsal instead to play professional futsal. So that's why when you see all these highly gifted Brazilian players, right? And I've already said a couple of them, one of them being Ronaldinho, one of them being Coutinho, being Neymar, they all grew up playing futsal. And it's like, you watch their footwork, their skill work with the ball. It's because they played so much in those tight little compact spaces where there is no time to sit there and wait. No time to sit there and wait and let the game pass. This is something that I think most people don't understand about the game that is so important. When you play soccer, 90% of soccer players can hide. Now, when I say hide, I mean they will literally stay away and try and get out of the game and not play. Right? When you play futsal, you cannot hide. You cannot hide. And what that means is you have to constantly be active in trying to assist the next thing, whether that's finding the ball, or that's dragging a player out of position to help another teammate get the ball, right? You're always active in the phase of play. When you start playing soccer, especially as a kid, they start at 7v7 really, and competitive, right? There are 6 other players, really 5, I guess, if you don't count the goalie, right? But so there's already more players on the court or the field. When you play futsal, it's 5 players, a goalkeeper, 4 court players. So if you are hiding, you've lost 25% of your on the court players, because that's 1 player out of 4. That's 25%. You cannot hide. You have to constantly be involved in the game. The second part is it's mental. You have to be non-stop engaged. So you can literally not turn around for 1 second or not focus on your player or your position, because the ball will end up in the back of your net immediately. Okay. Now, futsal is also a great tool for giving players the understanding of keeping the ball. And I say that because in this country, we are so focused on immediately getting a result, so trying to score right away. That's why we play kickball, because you want to smash the ball downfield. Kickball does not work, ever, in futsal. It is not, the court is too small for futsal or for kickball to actually reign supreme in futsal. It essentially relies on one team being capable of keeping possession, working on the rotations, which I'm going to explain in a second, to break down the defending team, and sometimes obviously a moment of magic. But you have to keep possession, because if you lose the ball, the other team has an immediate opportunity to score. Okay? Keep the ball. I'll give you a breakdown of this real quick. When I played for the U.S. men's national team for futsal, when we played Mexico, Curacao, and Canada trying to qualify for the World Cup, and our defensive game plan was very simple in the fact that whoever was in your starting position, you had to follow. That was your guy anytime the ball would reset. So, like, if it was a kickoff or a throw-in or from the keeper or whatever, a free kick, whatever position you were in, so I started as the left winger against Mexico, the guy on the left side was mine. So the second the ball played, wherever he ran in their rotation movement, I had to follow him. So it was, and it's not a jog or a walk, it's I'm sprinting to go catch this guy to make sure wherever he moves, I can keep up so he can't get the ball to score, right, or assist the next play. So I was constantly engaged. So if he switched with the opposition pivot, if he switched the Mexican pivot and he went up front, I had to go switch my fix, which is the defensive position, would go out and cover my spot and take that guy. So think about that for a second. I had to be nonstop here, mentally tuned in, focused, because if I switched off for 1 second and I didn't pay attention, and my guy ran into a position where I didn't follow him because I'm ball watching or I'm focused on something else, he would have got the ball and scored because he's wide open, because it's 4v4 and we went man to man. Now, right or wrong, it doesn't even matter. That's the way we played. So that's the key element of I had to be constantly engaged. And then on the flip side, they did man-to-man pressing. So I had to constantly figure out on the offensive side, how can I lose my player in the rotation to either get the ball or create space for a teammate to get the ball. And that is such a key element of futsal. It's non-stop engagement, non-stop movement, non-stop playing to receive the ball. Because guess what? If you don't, you're getting subbed off. You will get subbed off every single time. To put this down for you, if you want to see if your son, daughter, nephew, cousin, whatever, can play, put them on a futsal court. Now, I will tell you this as well. It is much harder for a soccer player to go into futsal than a futsal player to go into soccer. Because remember, I always say that soccer is like math. So in futsal, it's 5v5, much smaller numbers. You can start to figure out how to transition into bigger numbers. It's a lot harder to go, say, from 9v9 to go play 5v5. Because again, you can hide in soccer. In futsal, you can't hide. Now, there's also a bunch of other differences that I haven't talked about yet. And these are, for example, the rules, the play style. So I'll talk about the rules for a second. If you do or don't know, either way, futsal is a combination of soccer, basketball, and even handball. Now, I say it's more soccer and basketball, and I'll tell you why. Is because it has many of the same rules and play style. And what I mean by play style is you have basketball plays. In futsal, they're the same thing, but they're called rotations. So these are specific plays that teams will run to break down opponents. And there's hundreds of plays. There are so many plays, and it depends on the formation, the system that you're playing. So there are different systems from a 1-2-1 to a 3-1 to a 1-3 to a 2-2 to a 4-0. There's so many different formations and systems that you can use, and there's different plays to run off of those systems. It's a vast list, and it's only getting bigger and honestly more complicated as you go through. There's very simple rotations to very in-depth rotations that require every single player to remain constantly active. And it just depends on the system and the competent level of your players. But again, if you want to see if your son can hang, or your son, daughter, child, whatever, put them in a futsal game, and you're going to see right away, and I don't care how well or how good you are at soccer, you're going to struggle at futsal if you've never played before, 100%. Because it's a completely different ball game, completely different game. So challenge yourself, go try it. Now I got a couple more things I'm going to break down and discuss, but I wanted to give you that key detail. Even so much now that all the major European academies are investing heavily into futsal. So like I always talk about Olympic Linné. A friend of mine at Olympic Linné, they just completely, developed a complete futsal program. So their kids at, I'm trying to remember the exact ages he broke down for me, but basically anything under U12, they did futsal twice a week. And anything above that, 13, 14, 15, 16s, they did once a week. So even then, they're still playing in those small-sided, compact spaces. And they just put in a big gymnasium into their academy system. So their kids are constantly getting that tight, active exposure. And if you don't know, too, this is a big difference. In futsal, the ball is a lot smaller and heavier, so it eliminates the bounce, which means it relies a lot more on your individual skill to control the ball, one, but two, to beat somebody. Because if the ball is always in play, it's not hitting a wall and bouncing back in. There's no walls. The lines are there. So if it goes out of bounds, it's the other team's ball. They get an immediate chance to maybe take a shot or create an opportunity to score. So it's a constant game of engagement. And being here, and then technically, you have to be so proficient technically to be able to play at that level. Honestly, it's so unfortunate because, and it's not just in Florida, but I'm going to talk about Florida since I live here, is that there's no real futsal here. Most of the guys that are doing futsal are soccer coaches that go into futsal because they understand the importance of it, they get it, but they don't know how to teach it, right? And one of the key elements of futsal, and you'll know right away if somebody has any idea what they're talking about, period, is if they know how to control the ball properly. Now, in soccer, you can control the ball multiple different ways. In futsal, there's only talked about the amount of time and space that you have in futsal with 1 second. You have to make sure you use the sole because when you use the sole, the ball will stop. And then you can use an oriented control to move it in a direction that you need to go, whether that's left, right, forward, even backwards, right? That way you have complete control over the ball. Have to use the sole. But the amount of programs that I see in Florida and around the country where kids are using the inside, the outside, which means they're not actually being taught futsal, they're being taught indoor soccer. And that is a big element that most people don't understand, and that's just the first part, and there's many other keys that go into that, right? And the second part is, are they teaching your kids rotation? How do you move? Where you're moving to? So difficult for Floridians in general to play futsal is because look at the weather, right? I mean, it is beautiful year-round, so people don't have to go indoors to train, whereas if you go up north, the weather sucks, right? Let's be honest. So you have to go indoors to train. So you can either do indoor soccer or futsal. And there's a big, big developmental difference between using a wall and being able to use a futsal or play futsal. Okay, so it's paramount that you get training into futsal. But, and I'll give you another personal example. I took 2 years in a row, I've gone to the World Futsal Championships. This is the biggest tournament in the country for futsal. The first year we actually did pretty well. We got, one of the teams placed really, really well. And it was... but it's because we worked so hard to train. We tried it again this past summer, and we're still very serious, but we only required twice a week. And the teams that we played before had already had an extra year of futsal under their belt. So all the kids that we brought in to go play, I'll be dead honest, we struggled. I mean, it was very hard. Because again, we took a bunch of soccer players and tried to bring them into futsal. And again, they didn't understand the rotation elements, they didn't know how to control the ball at first, so we had to take literally the fundamental basis of the game and try and build it into their development. And while, we found success, they got better, we were unable to compete at that level because it was so, the other teams that we played have been training for over a year in futsal. Most of the teams on average range from a year to 3 years of futsal training. Our kids had 2 months, twice a week. We had 14 practices in total and like 3 scrimmages. It really added up, and you can see a big difference. And this is why when you look at Florida in general in terms of futsal, it's such a low level because 1, we don't have the coaches teaching the right way. 2, players aren't playing enough of it. They don't need to play. They can go outdoors right now and go play soccer. It's February. Most places in February can't go outside. It's too cold to train. Right? I mean, right now it's 75, 80 degrees here where I'm at. Big difference. Big, big difference. Way to control the ball. And that's with the sole, the bottom of your foot. Anytime the ball comes into you, you always use the bottom. And that is because, since the ball is heavier, if you use the inside, outside, laces, or whatever to control it, it could easily bounce away from you. Remember how, last thing I want to get into, it's a quote that I just gave you about Ronaldinho. And he talks about futsal, or he talks about improvisation as one of his key elements as a soccer player. Where do you think he learned that from? And the answer is futsal. Now, I say that because with the lack of time that you have in futsal, you have to make immediate decisions and then maybe a second decision because something didn't work out. So I'm going to give you an example, right? The example is this: because there's so little space on a futsal court, a lot of players, including myself, by the way, shoot with the toe, right? Literally, we'll just do what an old-fashioned toe blow. Now, the average American coach will tell you, no, don't ever use your toe. And that is a farcical decision for a coach to tell you that, to not use your toe. The reason why is one of the greatest goals Ronaldinho ever scored was against Chelsea in the Champions League final. Go YouTube this. Not Champions League final, sorry, semifinal against Chelsea. He gets the ball on top of the box. He has 4 defenders right around him. He does a little dance and toe blows. Everybody watches the ball. They go like this. Even Peter Cech, the goalkeeper, is just watching the ball hit the back of his net. Game over. Ronaldinho scores a goal. Game over. And most people don't understand that. Every average coach will be like, no, you don't do that. One of the greatest players to ever play the game used his toe. It was an element of surprise. Hits the back of the net. Right? I shoot all the time now. And this comes from futsal, is because you don't have time to, when you try and strike with power in soccer, right, you bring your foot back all the way, you strike through, you have the follow through like Frank Lampard, right? You have time to do that. In futsal, you don't have time. So 80% to 90% of the shots are toe shots for your toe, what we call the good old-fashioned toe blow. Okay, so it's improv, right? If you want to get your shot away because there's not enough time, use your toe, right? You come up with different moves because you don't have time. You have to try different flicks, tricks. Maybe it's not just a scissor. Maybe it's a fake here, do that. Step here, move here, 1, 2. All these improv tools that you'll need to use to beat somebody. That's what it comes down to. The creativity of your mind.